The Queen and the royal family are standard bearers for the country.
We adore our royal family, and we expect our royal family to use the very best of everything.
To supply the Queen by royal appointment is the ultimate endorsement of quality.
It is the pinnacle, it is the creme de la creme, the very best of the best, and it's got the royal seal of approval.
It's all the high-end brand names. Shoes from Lobbs, guns from Purdy's.
The select shops that serve the Queen are awarded the utmost accolade: a royal warrant.
Being a royal warrant holder is very important to us. It means that we have this recognition from the Queen that we are the best at what we do.
Who are the exclusive stores that provide goods and services to the Queen and the House of Windsor?
The relationship between Harrods and the British royal family was a very close one. It was more than a store, it was a resort.
When the Duchess of Cambridge or the Duchess of Sussex wears a particular dress, those items just sell out literally overnight.
How does one achieve the stamp of royal approval?
You have to keep up your standards and discretion. A royal warrant could mean millions to your company.
It's a bit like a secret society. If you are lucky enough to be appointed a royal warrant holder,
Royal insiders reveal what it takes to supply the palace.
Shopping with Diana was a unique experience. And to see the princess walking down the aisles, I used to think, why do you need to do this? Because there must be stacks of it back at Kensington Palace.
Every year, a horse-drawn delivery vehicle would deliver the gifts and the flowers to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth.
What happens behind closed doors at the shops that serve the Queen?
what royal warrants give us an indicator is the diversity of produce and services used by the royal family. It's a wonderful glimpse into a royal life.
As the head of the House of Windsor, the monarch sets the standard for the country. Everything about the Queen and senior royals is scrutinised in minor detail by the public. How they behave, what they say, and even what they wear and choose to buy matters to the nation. So, the shops that serve the Queen have to be the best of the best.
It's all the high-end brand names. For instance, they like, say, Florist soap. They like to get their shoes from Lobbs. They like to get their Wellingtons from Hunters. They get their guns from Purdy's.
For this exclusive list of retailers, a special accolade is granted, known as a royal warrant. It signifies an ongoing relationship between a company and the royals. The company must have supplied the palace for at least 5 years out of the last 7 before they can apply.
It's the Queen that gets to decide who grants royal warrants, and currently there are 3 people who are able to be royal warrant granters. That is the Queen herself, the Duke of Edinburgh, and Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales.
Today, there are around 800 warrant holders, ranging from independent craftsmen to large companies. If you look closely, royal warrants act like a map of royal tastes, providing clues to what the Windsors regularly use.
It demonstrates that they have always had this love of quality and are quite traditional in their styles and tastes in that regard.
Being royal means living in a world of opulence and luxury. It's a lifestyle most of us can only dream about. And it's the crown jewels which are the ultimate symbols of wealth, status and power.
The Queen's Jewel Vault is huge. We still get pieces coming out today that we didn't know existed.
From diamond-encrusted tiaras to exquisite brooches to those wonderful necklaces, the full royal suite. A royal lady is never completely dressed until she's put on her jewels.
The Queen's private collection is said to consist of around 300 pieces, many priceless heirlooms, a select few of which she loans out to Kate and Meghan for important occasions.
There are so many iconic pieces of jewellery. You know, the jewellery tells a story, it's rich in history, it is, I think, immediately identifiable.
Historic jeweller Garrard was for over 160 years the crown jeweller. Situated in the heart of London's Mayfair, their job was to clean and restore the Queen's extensive jewellery collection.
Garrard is synonymous with royal weddings. They were given their royal warrant in 1840 by Queen Victoria after Prince Albert commissioned them to make a sapphire and diamond brooch for his future wife.
Famously, Princess Diana picked her engagement ring from a Garrard's catalogue. It's now estimated to be worth £250,000.
It had everything that you expected of a royal engagement ring. It had status. It was a beautiful sapphire, a very large stone that perfectly complemented Diana, those beautiful blue eyes, her colouring, set in diamonds, very much of the time. But I think, as with all royal pieces of jewellery, it had that timeless elegance about it that made it very, very special.
Among the collection's treasures is the biggest gem quality diamond that's ever been found. Known as the Cullinan Diamond, the rock was discovered in South Africa more than 100 years ago and weighs in at an impressive 3,106 carats. The diamond was broken down into over 100 separate pieces, which Garrard's made into necklaces, rings and brooches. The biggest stones form the centrepiece of the crown and sceptre.
They were once Queen Mary's, and they were made into these beautiful, beautiful brooches. But the funny thing is, they're actually probably the size of quite small stones. They're not tiny at all, and they're affectionately known as Granny's chips by the Queen because they just remind her of her grandmother.
Some of the brooches, known as Granny's chips, were made at this tiny, unassuming jewellery workshop in London's famous Hatton Garden. Run by Richard Cornelius, E. Wolf & Co. have made some of the most famous crowns in the royal collection, including the Imperial State Crown. And they've just finished their latest creation, a diamond tiara.
The work on this is quite outstanding, so that it is very, very light and can be worn on the head. It's not something like one of the crowns that weighs £5. This would be quite comfortable to wear.
This 22-carat diamond tiara costs £230,000 and is detachable, so it can be worn as a necklace or even as a pair of earrings. However, the Queen's iconic look is never complete until she's got a Lorna handbag on her arm. She has a staggering collection of over 200 handbags, all from the same designer. Exquisitely made and hand-sewn in leather, they retail at almost £2,000 each. And their purpose can be surprisingly strategic, as royal watchers have observed.
The Queen traditionally has a very old, prestigious English firm of handbags, black patent normally to match her black patent shoes. And often she will signal with her handbag. So if she wants to leave, she might put it on her lap or she might put it on the table as a sign to her equerries or the people around that now it's time to go. So they will then start to move the people out of the room. It's her sign that things now need to move on.
The royals reveal their tastes at special occasions. Floral arrangements often take centre stage, giving us yet another intriguing clue to how the House of Windsor shops.
Obviously, when it was Princess Eugenie's wedding, we used lovely assorted autumnal foliage.
Simon Lysett has for 20 years created floral works of art for the royals' most prestigious special occasions.
I'm fortunate enough to have worked for the royal family for about 20 years, from the Queen Mother's 100th birthday party, the Duke of Edinburgh's 80th birthday party, weddings, parties, the wedding reception of the Prince of Wales when he married the Duchess of Cornwall. We used an enormous amount of daffodils and narcissi, him being the Princess of Wales and it being spring. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, celebrated her 100th birthday with a party for the family at Windsor Castle, and we were fortunate enough to be able to create beautiful decorations of pastel roses throughout the grand reception rooms. The Queen Mother was like everybody. She adored soft garden roses.
For Princess Eugenie's wedding last year, Simon collaborated closely with the young royals to design the look for the day.
The colour palette that we used was inspired by the season, so it was very autumnal, rich, beautiful, gorgeous colours which work perfectly in Windsor, which is full of golds and reds and scarlets, a very ornate setting. Whenever we've worked on a royal wedding, the brief has always been that they want it to feel as if the flowers have been gathered together with the foliage from the ground, so we're so lucky because we're able to go and cut from Windsor Great Park and the Savile Gardens.
As a royal supplier, Simon must keep impeccable standards if he is to continue to serve the palace.
If I'm creating a huge decoration, then longer stem length is quite important, but the size of heads and the quality of the flower is the most important aspect. Everything we do is really time pressured, so because flowers are perishable, we need to work quickly. I want the flowers to be maximum open, beautiful and gorgeous, so we will often buy flowers 4 or 5 days in advance, so that instead of a tight bud, we give a gorgeous, beautiful, voluptuous, open flower.
The Queen is generous and will often give flowers away, building on a centuries-old tradition of donating wedding bouquets to local hospices.
When we're asked to create flowers for Her Majesty the Queen, we're always told that if we present a posy, it's to be unwired and made of seasonal flowers, and the tradition is always that they will then be shared with a local hospital or community.
While Simon provides arrangements for special events, wholesalers Smith & Green supply daily flowers to the royal palaces. Up to 3 times a week, the owner, Peter, will choose the flowers he wants to send to the royal households, much like a personal shopper. He also supplies a selection of white flowers to the various chapels and churches on the royal estates.
They leave it to me, I choose it for them. Whatever I want to put in there that week, I'll use my initiative and choose something that I think they'll like. Well, I've had favourable comments, how nice the flowers have been, so I must have done something right over the years.
But for Peter, who only received his warrant 6 years ago, the bar is high if he's to keep the coveted royal arms above the door and continue serving the Queen.
You have to keep up your standards and discretion. A royal warrant could mean millions to your company. Now, you don't want to lose that, do you?
All those who hold a warrant are warned that discretion is of the utmost importance, and if they cross the line, they run the risk of losing their warrant.
It's a bit like a secret society. If you are lucky enough to be appointed a royal warrant holder, yes, you've got the coat of arms proudly on display on your shop front, but you never talk about what the Queen or any other senior member of the royal family is ordering or using.
They would be expected to maintain a degree of discretion and responsibility and standards. It was a way of controlling, really, the degree to which these suppliers would reveal exactly what the monarch was consuming or buying or had particular preference for.
In practice, this means the warrant prevents businesses from disclosing details of what the royals buy. But when shops overstep the mark, decades of service end up counting for little. Rigby and Peller had for nearly 60 years been the Queen's corsetiers. Founded in the late 1930s, the company first received their royal warrant during the swinging 60s.
A swimsuit designed very short to give the long leg effect. At the same time, the little skirt can be worn like a cape to protect the shoulders from the sun. At this rate, we'll soon be having costumes that protect them from the sea.
For decades, they've been making bespoke undergarments for some very prestigious customers, including the Queen Mother, Diana, Princess Margaret, and even the Queen herself.
Even royals change shape over time, and so their undergarments measurements change shape as well. So someone comes from Rigby and Peller and measures Her Majesty's requirements to provide the most excellent undergarments.
That all stopped in 2017 with the publication of the owner's revealing autobiography entitled Storm in a D Cup. The author, June Kenton, was interviewed by the press at the time.
The book was published. I proudly sent one to Buckingham Palace, and a fairly short time afterwards I heard that because I'd written this book and it was so awful that I was going to lose the royal warrant to the Queen. It's very sad.
In her book, she described visiting the palace to measure Her Majesty. We went into the lift that goes up to the Queen's apartment, and only then did we settle down to the business in hand.
It's not that she gave out Her Majesty's intimate measurements. It's just that she said that she did it. That was enough to be repelled from the royal presence. And as a result of that, she lost her royal warrant.
For many years, there was one premier store that was a royal favourite, a one-stop shop for everything a palace may need, from pins to pianos, tea to tiaras.
It was more than a store, it was a resort. It was somewhere where you could spend the whole day, have coffee, lunch, afternoon tea, do your shopping, and be entertained. It was a show. Retail is theatre.
A royal warrant is the ultimate stamp of approval given by the palace to only the best shops and suppliers in Britain. However, in more recent years, the shops that serve the Queen go to her. They bring whatever she wants to the palace, giving the monarch the luxury of shopping in her own home.
It's more often that the shop comes to the royal. So of course that adds an element of discreetness to the process. So taking it behind palace walls adds that element of security.
Paul Burrell spent a decade serving the Queen as her personal footman. He witnessed firsthand the lengths retailers would go to cater for their VIP customer.
Now, the Queen can't just wander out into the streets of London and shop for her family. So the shops come to the Queen. The Queen has her own little shop set up in the drawing room. Her Majesty will please herself and wander around this little makeshift pop-up shop and pick presents for her family.
The Queen hasn't always only shopped within the confines of Buckingham Palace. In the early years of her reign, there was one department store which was prominent enough to warrant the Queen shopping there in person.
Harrods, London. The most interesting and beautiful store in the whole of Britain and one of the most famous in the world.
One of the people charged with the day-to-day running of the store was former Public Affairs Officer Michael Cole.
Obviously, as a child, Princess Elizabeth with her sister, Princess Margaret Rose, had often been to Harrods with their mother. Harrods always had a special department dedicated to catering to the royal customers.
In the old days for the Queen, the shop would close down. Of course, if they've got a royal client, they're going to do everything they can to make it easy for them. One of the most unpleasant things about shopping is probably having a lot of other people around you. So I think it would be wonderful, and I think it is a dream to have the shop closed for you.
In the first decades of the Queen's reign, the Knightsbridge department store was considered the mecca of royal shopping. With over 300 different departments spread across 7 floors, everything was catered for.
It was more than a store, it was a resort. It was somewhere where you could spend the whole day, have coffee, lunch, afternoon tea, do your shopping, and be entertained. It was a show. Retail is theatre.
In 1955, the Queen acknowledged Harrods' status, granting them the honour of a royal warrant. It acknowledged the store was a favourite of the royals.
What royal warrants give us an indicator is the diversity of produce and services used by the royal family. It's a wonderful glimpse into a royal life.
The royal warrant is awarded when goods or services are deemed to have the monarch's approval. Only the monarch can decide who has the power to bestow royal warrants. Today, there are 3 royals who can grant this honour: the Queen, her husband Prince Philip, and Prince Charles. The Queen Mother was also able to prior to her death in 2002.
It doesn't come automatically. it only comes with royal approval. It says, I use this. I'm the Queen. This is my product. I think internationally a royal warrant tells you it's a signpost of where to go.
Harrods at one time possessed all 4 royal warrants, proudly displaying them above its doors. This was a rare and significant achievement, confirming a very special relationship between the monarchy and the department store.
Harrods was one of the very few firms that had all 4 royal warrants. That was because it provided such a wide range of goods and services to a very high standard.
For the Windsors, the location was ideal. It even shared the same postcode as the palace.
It was so well placed to service the rich people of London, the people of Belgravia, Chelsea, South Kensington, the people within what I always call the Tiara Triangle. And of course, the horses were used for deliveries to the royal palaces. I remember in particular, the horses would always be used for a delivery to the Queen Mother at Clarence House on her birthday, August the 4th. Every year, the Harrods horse-drawn delivery vehicle would deliver the gifts and the flowers that came from Harrods to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. The relationship between Harrods and the British royal family was a very close one.
In 1981, when the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer took place, it was inevitable where gifts for the royal couple would be purchased.
High on the wedding list is this little number. It's very classic and should feel very much at home at Highgrove, and has been specially chosen by Lady Diana. 18 dinner plates like this one come next. Specially commissioned, the service will cost a generous guest over £2,000.
After her wedding, Princess Diana continued to be a regular visitor to the store. Michael Cole recalls touring the princess around in person.
Princess Diana knew Harrods better than I ever did. She more or less lived in the store after she came to London as a young woman. She could walk through the store, know the fastest way from one department to another, via the back staircases. I mean, she amazed me what she knew about the store.
Harrods wasn't the only place Princess Diana liked to shop. Accompanying her on shopping trips would be her protection officer, Ken Wharf.
Well, shopping with Diana was a unique experience. Occasionally, she'd say, Ken, I need to go down to Marks and Spencer's, to the one in Kensington High Street, to the food hall. It's bizarre. And to see the princess walking down the aisles, picking out from the freezer a bag of McCain's chips or some burgers off the shelf. I used to think, why do you need to do this? Because there must be stacks of it back at Kensington Palace. But it was this thing about Diana being in touch with normality and reality.
Harrods' Latin motto translates as, all things for all people. Whether or not the shop was affordable for all people is questionable, but the fact all things really were on offer can't be argued.
Up until 2014, they actually sold exotic animals, which did cause some controversy, but it just shows the sort of outlandish and often unusual behaviour and trends that Harrods generally follows.
It also sold a crocodile and a lion to 2 very wealthy customers, so really a shop like no other.
And in 2007, the department store went to new lengths to protect one very exclusive pair of heels.
Now, they were worth £62,000. They were encrusted with diamonds and rubies. Harrods actually employed a cobra to sit in with the shoes to make sure that no one would tamper with them. Why wasn't a security guard and some security glass enough? A live cobra was employed instead.
A favourite of the royals, prices were also exceptionally high, even on sale day.
The bargain of the day, a golden sable, down from £60,000 to £30,000.
The Harrods Winter Sale is one of the most famous retail sales in the world.
I remember one sale in particular. The tills took £11 million. Now, that is an enormous sum of money for one store to take in one day.
During the 4-week sale period in January each year, it is estimated 1 million bargain hunters will enter the doors of Harrods.
We bought Chinaware, we bought silk scarves. What else did you buy? You bought a coat?
A coat, and I came all the way from Chicago, USA, to do it.
But the relationship between the royal family and Harrods was to take a turn for the worse. In 1985, it was bought by billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed. His unique vision was to transform the store and its relations with the royals. For a decade, Michael Cole was one of Al Fayed's right-hand men.
From the time he bought the store in 1985, Mohammed couldn't really understand why the insignia of 4 people were on his store. He put it down to English snobbery and English class system. And that feeling became more intense after the tragic deaths of his eldest son, Dodi, and Diana, Princess of Wales.
Relations between the palace and Harrods were never the same after the death of Princess Diana. It really did go south.
So in a show of sort of flamboyance, Fayed removed the royal warrants.
The whole Harrods debacle was very unusual. Never before had anyone surrendered their royal warrant. Quite the reverse. People wanted them.
Beyond Harrods, there is an army of shops and retailers serving the Queen. For the craftsmen and women supplying the Windsors, life can occasionally become dramatic when there's an emergency.
The policeman realised this was a matter of royal urgency, so it goes out on the loudspeaker, make way for the Queen's gloves, and my husband drives into the palace.
The royal warrant is the ultimate seal of approval, bestowed on those who are deemed to have met the standard and have served the Queen and her household for at least 5 years. The Queen uses the appointment of royal warrants to champion British craftsmanship. Tucked away in the corner of a field in rural Sussex, the artisan glove maker Cornelia James has been stitching the Queen's gloves for over 6 decades.
My mother was Cornelia James, and she was invited to design a whole range of gloves for the honeymoon for Queen Elizabeth.
Having originally fled war-torn Vienna in the late 1930s, Cornelia James came to England with just a suitcase of leather. The gloves she made for the Queen's honeymoon trip made her famous, and Vogue would go on to call her the Colour Queen of England. It was the start of a long-standing relationship between Cornelia and the Queen, who was granted the honour of a royal warrant in 1979. Genevieve James is now continuing the tradition started by her mother.
When you see the picture of the Queen and she's waving and there's the white hand, I get a sort of lovely feeling because I kind of know it's my glove. Gloves are very much part of her style, part of her iconic look.
Each glove is carefully created by hand. The fabric is cut using an original machine from the early 1900s. One glove contains 2.5 meters of stitching and is exclusively worked on by a single seamstress. A set will take just 1 hour to complete. Their premium pair are silk and would cost £160, but the Queen favours a more practical style.
She likes this fabric, it's a brushed cotton. She wears either a Swiss very lightweight jersey cotton that I make especially for her, or a slightly heavier brushed cotton, as they're both 100% breathable and they're comfortable to wear.
Having served the Queen for 40 years, the family business was invited to Buckingham Palace, demonstrating that for the Queen, each royal warrant holder is more than just an anonymous merchant.
She came up towards me and I bowed and I said, "Your Majesty, I'm your glove maker." She said, "I know absolutely who you are." And it was such a wonderful moment and completely put at ease by her. She's so powerful and radiant. And I thought, I just want to die now. This is the best moment of my life.
Genevieve and her team understand that the Queen's gloves are more than just an accessory. They strive to go that extra mile when duty calls.
When the Queen was going on a royal trip to Korea, we get a panic phone call from the palace saying the Queen's going to Korea, but her white gloves haven't arrived. We thought, oh my goodness, what do we do?
Determined to ensure the Queen would have her gloves, Genevieve gathered together replacements and her husband raced to the palace on his motorbike. But there was a problem. It was London Marathon Day and police had cordoned off the area around Buckingham Palace.
So the policeman stops him and the policeman said, what have you got? He said, I've got the Queen's gloves. And the chap says, pull the other one, mate. He said, I have got the Queen's gloves. And eventually the policeman realised this was a matter of royal urgency. So it goes out on the loudspeaker, the barriers go down, make way for the Queen's gloves. And my husband drives into the palace.
The Queen got her gloves, just in time for her visit to Korea. Having served the Queen with such distinction for 40 years, the family business is now making gloves for younger members of the House of Windsor.
We have in the last few years made gloves for the Duchess of Cambridge. Usually she favours merino wool, which is nice. It's a lovely wool that we have, which comes from Australia, and it usually has a side bow on it or a front bow.
The Duchess of Cambridge sported a pair of Cornelia James gloves on a trip to Dundee in early 2019. A similarly styled pair purchased from Cornelia James would cost £75. Kate's classic sense of style is said to take inspiration from the monarch herself as she dresses for her future role as Queen.
I think it's largely thanks to the Duchess of Cambridge that they are enjoying a bit of a resurgence. And when you see Kate at Ascot and sometimes she chooses to wear gloves, it is a bit of a hark back to a royal bygone.
With endorsements from multiple generations of the royal family, Cornelia James is reaping the rewards. Many businesses have seen a huge rise in their revenue as a result of being a royal warrant holder. In 2017, warrant holders were said to have received an estimated overall boost of almost £200 million, thanks to their royal affiliations. Cornelia James's relationship with the palace has greatly benefited their business, particularly overseas.
I do believe the royal warrant gives us a competitive edge. We sell a lot in the USA. I'm sure it's because they absolutely love the royal family. We also sell in Japan. 75% of our business is export, and the royal warrant is a great accolade to have for this. Being a royal warrant holder is very important to us. We have this recognition from the Queen that we are the best at what we do. I'm immensely proud of that.
Charles's appointments can have equally as much success for a brand. In 2017, Aston Martin generated an estimated £43 million more thanks to their appointment to the household. The luxury car company has held their warrant with the Prince of Wales since 1982. A firmly established relationship that started when Prince Charles was gifted an Aston Martin Volante for his 21st birthday.
At the Britannia Royal Naval College, the start of a new training course for Prince Charles, who arrived wearing the uniform of an acting sub-lieutenant.
The Prince of Wales also has a pretty extensive car collection, but being very mindful of his carbon footprint, it's no surprise that quite a few of these cars are electric.
In 2018, the Prince added to his collection the royal family's first all-electric car, the Jaguar I-Pace, also royal warrant holders. Royal patronage dates back as far as the monarchy itself. By studying the range of tradesmen honoured by a 12th century royal household, a very different picture of royal needs emerges.
People that were like rat catchers, mole catchers, suppliers of swans and cranes for Henry VIII, who would like those for his great feasts.
During the reign of Queen Victoria, the Royal Warrant Association was formed, and the royal practice of endorsing companies was formalised.
Queen Victoria was dishing out royal warrants left, right and centre. During her long reign, there was more than 1,000 warrants were granted to all kinds of companies, including some that still retain the royal warrant today, like Fortnum and Mason.
Today, the largest group of warrant holders are food and drink companies, with over 100 on the list. And Fortnum and Mason is considered a cut above the rest.
Fortnum & Mason on Piccadilly is a very special store. It's the Queen's grocer. Not just any grocer, the Queen's grocer.
Founded in 1707 by William Fortnum, who had been a footman to Queen Anne, the store remains a firm royal favourite, today holding 2 warrants.
Fortnum & Mason is the height of quintessential Britishness, from the beautiful hampers to the rows and rows of special blend teas. It really is a lovely, lovely place to shop, and a pretty practical place to shop as well, as long as you can afford the price tag.
Fortnum & Mason is world famous for its luxurious hampers. The premium option, known as the Imperial Hamper, costs £6,000. Among a selection of items, privileged customers will find inside pink champagne, beluga caviar and a Christmas pudding.
Fortnum's is famous around the world for their hampers, the wicker basket with the F&M on the front of it. You can get almost anything in it, but obviously it has Fortnum's tea, which is very famous, and a bottle of bubbly, and cheeses and preserves and perhaps pâté. No Ascot worth its salt would be complete without a Fortnum & Mason hamper.
In 2012, as part of her Jubilee celebrations, Her Majesty the Queen visited the store to open the Diamond Jubilee tea rooms. She was accompanied by the Duchess of Cornwall and the Duchess of Cambridge.
One of the things I remember most about the Queen's Diamond Jubilee was the visit that she made with Camilla and Kate to Fortnum & Mason. I think it must be one of the few occasions I've seen where the Queen, Camilla and Kate have been on a public engagement together. The Queen was fascinated by the honey and preserves, and I think Kate was talking about the different teas.
To commemorate this important landmark occasion, the Queen's grocer created a range of 60 new products, including a special service tin containing Fortnum & Mason tea and biscuits, sent around the globe to 17,000 members of the British Armed Forces.
Good strong tea for the troops on there as well. They like some strong biscuits. Absolutely, Mum, yeah, absolutely.
A new generation of royals looks set to modernise the House of Windsor. Will they also revolutionise the way royals shop?
Without a doubt, it's a case that whatever Duchess Kate or Duchess Meghan wears, they crash websites, they sell out immediately.
The shops that serve the Queen embody excellence, craftsmanship and, most importantly, discretion. But for the younger royals, the advent of social media has made them and the details of what they buy more accessible than ever. From what they do to what they wear, everything about the royals generates headlines.
Social media is increasingly playing a part in drawing attention to the kind of goods, clothes that the royals purchase and like to wear, particularly for a younger consumer market.
The glamorous younger royals, like the Duchesses of Cambridge and Sussex, are offering their patronage to firms that don't hold royal warrants. Companies are getting the benefits without having the official stamp of the monarchy.
We've seen that when the Duchess of Cambridge or the Duchess of Sussex wears a particular dress, particularly from a high street brand like, Zara or so on, those items just sell out, literally overnight. So it has a huge impact.
For the royals, the public appetite for what they're wearing and where they're shopping is insatiable. The duchesses in particular are endlessly scrutinised, photographed and often compared to one another.
Kate, very glamorous, particularly at black tie events. She goes to her go-to designers, Alexander McQueen. And Meghan, I would say quite cutting edge, actually. She's naturally very, very stylish. And we've seen some great high fashion looks from her.
As the future queen, Kate's fashion influence has proved to be greater than Meghan's. Recent studies show the Duchess of Cambridge is the royal most likely to convince American consumers to buy British.
What is extraordinary about Kate is the moment that she started dating Prince William, and from the moment they got engaged, everybody wanted to wear the same clothes as her. Websites have sprung up, like what Kate wore and Kate's wardrobe, and it's become known as the Kate effect, effectively.
But Meghan is hot on the heels of her sister-in-law, wielding massive influence over the fates of small brands. During Harry and Meghan's tour of the South Seas in 2018, the Duchess of Sussex caused a sensation with every outfit she was pictured in.
The Meghan effect really took off for one particular brand, Outland Denim. This Australian company employs Cambodian women who are the survivors of trafficking. And when Meghan wore their jeans, they saw a huge increase, more than 600% increase in sales. And because of that, they were able to employ more than 45 new seamstresses in Cambodia for that. So that's a really, really positive effect that Meghan simply wearing a pair of jeans has had, because people want to replicate this royal style.
And it's not just clothes. The so-called Markle Sparkle works on accessories too. She shares a love of posh handbags with the Queen. Her influence on the fortunes of handbag designer Strathberry began on her first official outing with Prince Harry in 2017. Just by carrying the stylish bag, Meghan caused Strathberry's revenue to double to £12 million. They even had to launch a dedicated website in Japan.
Without a doubt, it's a case that whatever Duchess Kate or Duchess Meghan wears, they crash websites, they sell out immediately. And, you know, we saw that with Meghan from that very first initial appearance at the Invictus Games, when I think she wowed us all in that white husband shirt. That sold out. The ripped denim jeans, you know, cue a trend for ripped denim, and those Sarah Flint pumps, which I think have only just come back in stock.
It took nearly a year for the designer to work her way through a waiting list of 25,000 women, all clamouring to look like the Duchess of Sussex. Both the Cambridges and the Sussexes are modernising the royal family in all sorts of ways, not least in terms of where they shop.
We see it with William and Kate in the way that they're raising their children and sending them to a relatively regular school, giving them these remarkably ordinary royal childhoods. And I think we see it in the Sussexes. I mean, look at their recently launched Instagram page, which has become the fastest growing Instagram site in history. And no doubt a royal birth that will be announced on Instagram and will probably be the first to be so as well.
They may have joined Instagram, and they may buy the odd thing from the high street, but the royals have to navigate living in an age of social media carefully.
Of course, the greatest challenge is not being seen to... too accessible, not being seen to be ordinary. The monarchy can only survive while there is that magic surrounding it.
While the new royals are busy making a name for themselves as global and outward-looking, how far could they push their modernisation agenda?
I suppose with the explosion of Instagram, with details of the designer dresses that the duchesses are wearing, is there really a need for the royal warrant?
Some critics have questioned the warrant's value abroad.
I think there's a sort of maybe curiosity value. I think most foreign people would put it down to old-fashioned English snobbery and class distinction and say, oh, well, you know, it's quite cute, it's quite quaint, it's quite odd, but it's really nothing much to do with me. Now, where can we get a cup of coffee?
But most royal watchers are unanimous. in the historical value that the warrant represents and believe this will safeguard its future.
It's one of those things that's so steeped in royal tradition and royal culture that certainly, while the Prince of Wales is around, it's something that will survive, actually, the test of time.
Royal warrants are a very different thing to the Kate effect or the Meghan effect. Warrants are about quality, they're about royals choosing a brand that represents them. The Kate effect, the Meghan effect, they're much more fleeting. It doesn't mean these brands are going to be around or popular with the royals in a decade's time.